Thank you very much, Garba Natala, for that background. With us in the studios to discuss issues around the drug abuse menace in the country, let's welcome Femi Babafemi, Director of Media and Advocacy of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NTA.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
It's a pleasure having you. Let's quickly go to our other guest, Barrister Chuks Akamadu, President, Center for Ethical Rebirth Among Nigerian Youth. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thanks for having me.
And we also have Dr. Hope Omezia, Managing Director of V-Gada Specialist Rehabilitation Centers. You're welcome. And on a lighter note, happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
How old are you now?
I'm 34 now.
It's a year plus.
It's a year plus. Exactly. Kiss.
All right, so gentlemen, we're glad to have you in our studios, but this is a very serious subject matter. From time to time, Good Morning Nigeria has focused on the issues around drug abuse. And the description of drug abuse in Nigeria is sometimes described as a ticking time bomb. But many are now arguing that indeed the bomb has detonated and the consequences are staring us all in the face. Would this be a correct reflection of the situation? Let's begin with the NDLA.
Well, as it is, for us at the NDLA, we're glad that the level of awareness about this scourge is high, to the point that the leadership of both virtually all the arms of the government, both the executive and the legislature, as well as the judiciary, everybody is on the same page on this. And we're glad that the Senate also came up with that particular resolution. And where this will lead us, definitely, as it is often said, when you're able to identify a problem and you're going for it, meaning that the solution is you're almost there. And what it means is, with what the NDLA, along with other stakeholders, have been doing in this regard, with the full support of the government of Nigeria, we believe that we're close to finding a lasting solution to this problem. It's agreed, it's a global thing, it's a global scourge. It's not something that's limited or restricted to Nigeria. Other countries are also battling with what we're battling with there, but the fact that we realize it, we're doing something about it, that's really the good news in all of this.
Okay, thank you, Femi, for your opening comments here. And let's bring in Barrister Chuks Akamadu, President, Center for Ethical Rebirth Among Nigerian Youths. Talking about the youths, that is the focus here. Before the Senate brought up this, the call for the state of emergency on drug abuse in Nigeria, the House of Representatives too did that in June, if I remember correctly. Yeah. They began the agitation for government to look into this scourge, this menace that is eating deep into the fabric of our nation. And now you're the Center for Ethical Rebirth Among Nigerian Youths, and because they form the focus of this conversation today. What are you doing in synergy with government and other relevant agencies on this call, to look into this menace and find a way of bringing it down to the barest minimum? What's your contribution to it?
Well, first, I would like to commend the Senate for what they did yesterday, and it's a good thing that it's happening now, but it should have come earlier, like you noted. Federal House of Representatives, the 9th Federal House of Representatives, actually called for the state of emergency thing and everything. But well, it's better to be late than never, they say. Having said that, I think the scourge of drug abuse, of course, puts the Nigerian youth at risk. If it puts the Nigerian youth at risk, it means the nation itself is on the precipice. So it's a welcome development. And of course, going forward, we believe that now that the Senate has also come alive to its responsibility, other critical stakeholders would also buy in and then make this thing a lot stronger, because what we actually need is a a multi-sectoral approach, because it's not just the NDLEA alone that can fight this thing and then win this thing, win this war. We need the Senate. Now the Senate has woken up. That is good. We also need the judiciary to step in, because we actually need the three arms of government, as I've always argued, and the three tiers of government. The judiciary should then realize, oh, this is a national emergency. This thing is actually out there to consume all of us. If this is actually out there to consume all of us, it means that the judiciary should also ensure that cases that have to do with drug abuse, illicit trafficking and all of that, that they are dealt with expeditiously at that level. But let me also say that I like what the Senate said about the National Summit on Drug Abuse and all of that. I'm beginning to think maybe we are getting to that point where Nigerians will begin to prioritize this fight against drug abuse, because before now we seemed to have been treating it with levity. In 1965, at some point, the American government set up an independent agency called National Endowment for the Arts, because they realized there was need to preserve the arts. The National Endowment for the Arts in the United States of America was established primarily to do what? To promote, support, and fund every initiative by not-for-profit organizations and small communities that is geared towards advancing the cause of the art, promoting artistic excellence. Now, we need to get to that point too. Maybe we should also be flirting with the idea of saying, let us set up a national endowment for the fight against drug abuse, so that everybody can, small communities, not-for-profit organizations, can be strengthened and equipped better to complement the commendable effort of the NDLEA.
All right, thank you very much, Chuks Akamadu. Let's bring in Dr. Hope Omezia. From your assessment, what is the scale of problem that we're dealing with here with respect to drug abuse in the country today?
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning once again, Nigerians. You see, I remember in 2018, the House of Reps Committee on Narcotic had a national summit. I was very part of that summit. It was a 2-day program, and we had a rally the second day, say no to drug abuse, say yes to life on the street of Abuja. And then a document was even developed that was meant to be shared across the local government and wards. We had representatives from all the wards, in Nigeria. However, I don't think that actions met words after that summit. This year, as my colleague here has mentioned already, the House of Reps has also agitated, declaring an emergency, state of emergency on the narcotic situation in Nigeria. Now we have the Senate coming up, quite commendable, but I think it's time to match words with action. It's not enough to talk about it, and we keep talking about it. Thankfully, we have a capacious leader in the person of General Obama, retired, who is doing a whole lot. And for me, despite all he's doing, I just see that he probably doesn't have the necessary or all the fund required, even for drug supply reduction, not to talk of the drug demand reduction, which is also an enormous burden on the agency. I know that 2 years ago, the government has also implemented or passed that we're going to have rehab centers, one in each geopolitical zone. And I'm aware that some has already taken foundation already. But I think that more is required. So it's important that we are also able to strengthen the not-for-profit organization, as Barrister Chuk said earlier. In the Western countries, you have the government of those countries strengthening NGOs and CSOs. And they are able to keep individuals who need treatment. Because if you don't also treat those who are already hooked on this substance, then the peddlers will have a market to feed on. Because those who are addicted will certainly want to go for it. And I keep making this analogy. No matter how industrious, how entrepreneurial, how rich, and how passionate you are about a particular business, as far as there's no market, there's no demand for that business, chances are that an entrepreneur will not stick his money into that business. So if we don't cut down on the reduction of demand, then there will be demand for these drugs. The suppliers will want to fight the NDLA as much as they could to get their substances to the buyers. What is just going to happen is that the little they're able to get to the buyers, they will increase the price of it and further increase crime in society, because the buyers who are hooked on these substances will do everything within their limit to get these substances. So it's important that we also strengthen the arm of the Drug Demand Reduction, the Directorate, in the NDLA as well, which includes rehabilitation, includes awareness programs, and the rest. We need to do so much on awareness, not just on those who are the drug peddlers, the high-class traffickers, but also those who are suffering from the addiction already, who have provided a ready market for those who are into this business of destroying the lives of Nigerian youth. Now, not to scare Nigerians, drug addiction is a mental illness. We must come to this point. If we begin to look at it, that the number of those using drug in Nigeria means that we have number of those who are mentally incapacitated because they are not able to function. Some cannot go to school, some cannot continue with jobs, some cannot keep up with family and relationships. They cannot function normally and contribute their quota to society. So it means, therefore, that we have a case of severely incapacitated young individuals. I will stop here for now.
Young individuals were losing out on contribution to national development. Let's bring in Femi, Baba Femi again. They've talked about multi-sectoral approach, a national endowment for the fight against drugs, and also walking the talk. You know, on Monday, remember, Kingsley, we sort of talked about on the newspaper review on the so many arrests that you've been making and all the drugs you've been. But what Kingsley pointed out is we are not seeing prosecution.
No, we are actually, when it comes to prosecution, it's because when you talk of the media interest, you know, you are in the media, you know how it works. When suspects are taken to court, that's probably the only point the media will follow. Subsequently, you may not hear of, except we put some of these things together. As at this week, I know we have a full directorate in the agency called Planning, Research and Statistics. They put together a number of those that have been prosecuted and convicted in the last couple of months, and as at this week, there are over 6,000. Approaches 7,000 people, offenders that have been prosecuted, including a district head up north, somewhere in northwest, this last week. So, I mean, we have quite a lot of those things, but it's because depends on the focus of the media. That said, then you also mentioned what a part of what Shuk said about endowment fund and other stuff. Honestly, it's something we had also talked about before in some of the statements made by the chairman of the agency, and our analogy then was that COVID-19 that ravaged the world affected Nigeria, and I'm not sure we had 5,000 persons dead in Nigeria. I mean, and the number of those affected, I'm not sure they are up to 100,000. But here you have a scourge. Then we have the private sector, everybody rallied around, put together billions over 100 billion to tackle it. But here we have a problem that is affecting, that is almost destroying the youths. And just like they said, once the youth is destroyed,
the essence of a nation is.
So then at that point we look at it, okay, can't we also come together, reason out of the box and say, okay, if this thing is targeting our future, the future of this great country, can't we also do like a fund, just like the COVID fund, to respond to this in different areas, because we actually know that government alone may not be able to fund these activities, especially advocacy, empowering stakeholders like NGOs, civil society, because we know that these are people that have been serving, committed to this selflessly. using their own resources, but because of their passion, because of what they know about this scourge, they have been supporting the activities, complementing the work of the agency, and the agency itself were good enough. We know government has been also doing enough, even though it may not be as much as expected, but at least we know that the level of awareness within government, it's very high, and we're glad that government is doing something and continues to do something about it. But then, like I said, it is very key that we have to rally all stakeholders to see this as a national emergency, just like the Senate said, and do something tangible beyond government funding. We need like a private sector partnership, to the point that we'll be able to have a fund where we can, that will be not necessarily managed by the agency, but managed by reputable individuals in the society to respond to certain needs, like logistics for the agency, like advocacy, like treatment. We have, we're daily overwhelmed by calls from people, families, and friends of those in need of rehabilitation. Not all of these can, not all of these people can actually afford the treatment. Our own facilities, we have counseling and treatment centers attached to all our, virtually all our commands across the country. They are not enough, and that's why we work in partnership with the private sector operators like Dr. Hope here, who has centers in Abuja here, and we need, many of these across the country. And this kind of funds can also support individuals, families. We know families that have 2-3 children affected. I'm telling you, families. And there are centers that per month, treatment costs as much as $1 million plus. And now if you have 3, a family, and that's 2-3 million in a month. How many families can afford that? So indeed we need what you said is a whole society approach, has actually been recommended by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Office on Drugs and Crime. It's a whole society approach, meaning that we have to take everybody. It has to be a system that involves everybody. Nobody should be left behind, just like the media. And most importantly, I'd like to point this out, starting from the homes, parents. Honestly, this is very pertinent, because a lot of parents are no longer parenting. They just believe that they have children, that the moment they born these children, it's for the society, it's for God to take care of. God will not come down to come and take care of your kids. You also have a responsibility to take care of your kids, to know who they move with, to know what they do, to know what is in their backpack, to know what they take, to know developmental changes in their lives, so that when there is need to seek help, you get help immediately. Not when things are totally bad, they will now start blaming government for this, for that.
Okay, Femi, thank you very much there for your explanation. But I think that it's important for us to further examine the call for the establishment of, again, another fund. And I'm sure if we were to take a census of the funds that we have in the country, they will be well beyond anyone's imagination. Fund for this, fund for that. We tells you that, again, in the public space or in the PPP space, you have major challenges that require specialist intervention by way of financing. But there is an issue, because there has first to be an attitudinal appreciation of the problem that society is faced with right now. I hear a lot about what the NDLEA is doing, particularly arrests. We'll come to later on to the issue of diligent prosecution and publicizing the outcomes of such prosecution. But is drug abuse being perceived as a federal government problem alone? Because I'm asking this question. We have had conversations, we've had you on Good Morning Nigeria in the past, we've had persons who've joined us from different parts of the country to discuss the issue of drug menace. I hear very little from the subnational entities. as to what they are doing, either on demand drug reduction, providing rehab centers. The purpose of the social welfare, where are they? That's why I'm asking this question. What has been your experience? Because if we keep, looking to say NDLEA, so, and then we have the entire society that is menaced by this challenge.
Yes, very good. I appreciate that intervention and the question from you. I'll tell you, from us, we tried as much as possible to take everybody along in this fight. And I remember I was talking about a system like the COVID fund then, and I was referring to the figures of those affected in Nigeria. I was trying to link that with those affected by the drug menace. If we had a problem that affected about 100,000 or less than 100,000, and here we have another issue that is affecting, and we could mobilize all the resources to face that challenge. And here we have an issue that is affecting almost 15 million Nigerians, and there could be more. Then there is enough justification for us to mobilize the national resources, both from the private and the public sector, to face that challenge. That said, now coming to the sub-nationals, I'll tell you that indeed there has been concerted effort, and that is well documented in the National Drug Control Master Plan 2021 to 2025, where all of these things are laid out. And we have also gone ahead to get the state governors to inaugurate, to set up state drug control committees, and even in quite some states also, we've also had local government drug control committees. And we have also gone beyond that to also see that these things are not just mere committees that are not functioning. We have also gone ahead to involve, because we know the governors may be too busy to pay all the attention to these committees. So what we have also done is to encourage the governors to make their wives chairmen of these committees, so that women are more passionate, especially when it concerns their kids, their children, the youth. So, and we're glad that in some states some of these things are beginning to come up. And in furtherance to that, we also know that last year we had a stakeholders conference and training for wives of the governors, all the wives of the governors, in partnership with UNODC in Abuja here. And I'm also glad that in a few days' time, also the wives of the governor's wives would also be having a meeting with the chairman, chief executive of NDLA, General Marwa, here in Abuja here. Also a furtherance of this same effort to actually get the states to get actively involved. And beyond us just getting involved, there are quite a lot of predisposing factors, especially poverty, lack of jobs, lack of employment, and some of these social verbs that we need to actually plug across the states. That's part of the reasons why we're encouraging the governors also to do at the state level, the local level, so that they can also. We have also even gone ahead to directly engage with chairmen of the local governments, that's the association, ALGON, Association of Local Governments of Nigeria. We have also gone ahead to engage with them. There ought to have been a general meeting with them some months ago, but that has not been able to come in play. But then there have been efforts to also get them to also, but we're glad that the process may not be as fast as we all expect, but then there are actually efforts to actually get all of these things functioning. We appreciate the fact that in some states, we have rehab centers being built already by some governors in their state, and all we need is for this to go around the country, so that one, in the area of prevention, there are social there are things on ground to actually take the youth out of this thing and get them fully engaged, get them busy with things that will better their lives rather than drugs. And for those that are already hooked on these things, there are systems in place, especially for treatment, rehab centers where they can seek help, go in and seek help. And beyond that, again, we have also tried, because there is also a problem in some states. I mean, well, it's global, it's all over the country as well. There is also the problem of stigmatization. A lot of our people who even are genuinely interested in seeking treatment, they are afraid of what the people will say, what or if they see them going to the rehab center. So what the agency has also done is to set up a call center where we have mental health experts, psychologists, psychotherapists, as well as psychiatric doctors who will work behind the scene to engage with them, pick their calls. And we also made the call line toll-free, so that would not discourage those who may not have the means to call.
You know, Femi, thanks a lot for what you are reading out. Juma, the reason I'm asking this question is, when you look at the numbers that are read out by the UNODC, seizures by NDLEA, and then the word of mouth messages, you hear about drug abuse, primarily in the southeast, for instance. And then you see videos sometimes of some persons who have lost the self-control and are tumbling into gutters, and others are just getting the phone of unfortunately, you know, of watching that person and claiming that, oh, it's the result of something they call, is it Coronado or Coronado?
Colos.
I don't know. You are hearing all of that. And the question that arises, Akamado, is as follows. Why are we not, say, at least for those at the national level, why are we not hearing about the intensification of efforts by local governments, by state governments, with respect to the issues that we will do? I'm not saying set up your own committees to go and be arresting drug peddlers and so on and so forth. That's the remit of NDLEA. But in terms of rehabilitation, in terms of providing access, in terms of just unleashing your social welfare workers to deal with these persons, if indeed it's a drug menace that we are all concerned about.
If you had listened to me in my opening shot, I did mention that we need the collaborative effort of the 3 tiers of government and 3 arms of government. And of course, I make that remark advisedly. You see, we are here to appreciate the enormity of the problem we have on our hands. We are toying with this thing, and we don't seem to realize this is capable of wrecking our society. NDLEA is doing well, but NDLEA can't do this. NDLEA alone cannot do this. There has to be a sense of co-ownership of the fight against drug abuse. For me, that's why I said this summit, maybe if it eventually happens, will provide an avenue for us to also impress it on them, our leaders, that we actually need an elite consensus for us to fight this menace. We also need mass action. The elite themselves, have they agreed that there is need for us to bring this to a halt? Then if the answer is in the affirmative, then the masses themselves should prepare to give them the support they require, so that we can overcome this, because you actually can't clap with one hand, because that is what the federal government is doing at the moment. When we talk about drug abuse and we talk about youths, people who are hooked on it, we forget that these people, they live in cities, they live in villages, they live in communities, they live in local government councils, they live in states. Federal government actually is out there in the air. So when we say that we have this prevalence of drug abuse all over, it should be the concern of the other tiers of government, because that is where the havoc is actually wreaked. They feel the impact more than the federal government. Like I said, federal government is in the air. So state government, the NDLEA should get to a point where it should begin to accept its limitations, and then also engage, let the world know that this is your limitation, this is the limit, you can't do it all. Let's all rise. NDLEA should tell Nigerian Bar Association that they have a role to play. Catholic Bishop Conference of Nigeria, they have a role to play. Nigerian Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs, they have a role to play. National Youth Council of Nigeria, they have a role to play. National Council of Women's Societies, they have a role to play. The moment we accept, we begin to appreciate this Menace as something that is capable of eating all of us up, that's when individually we'll begin to do what we can as institutions, as CSO organizations, as CSOs, as religious organizations, as traditional institutions, and all of that. But if we leave this in, you're already overburdened. If you ask me, you're already really overburdened. Other stakeholders should begin to realize that they are equally assailed by this Menace and that they have something to contribute. Let us not sit back. Actually, hotel owners also have a role to play. So let us not continue to see this as an NDLEA, Nigerian Police Force mandate. Not at all. Now that the Senate has stepped out, I pray that it does not end at that level. Please, NDLEA, I advise that you should leverage on this call by the Senate and see how we can optimize this opportunity and get everybody to appreciate this as a worsening emergency on our hands.
That I can tell you that indeed, what he just said, leveraging on that, you know, we won't just see that and sit back and fold our hands. We're already in contact with the appropriate Senate committee, that is the Committee on Drugs and Narcotics, and hopefully any moment from now we'll be having a meeting with the committee just to ensure that this goes further, not just something that is discussed. And we're very sure that with the passion that issue was discussed on the floor of the Senate, definitely is something that that will be taken further. That because we know we're in touch with members of the committee and the distinguished.
But
yes.
It's not, Juma. It wouldn't be a matter of another son.
Exactly. That's why I want to come to Barrister Chuks Akamadu, because I'm coming to you because of your Center for Ethical Rebirth. There's a growing call for parents to look into what their children are doing. We are looking at a degrading societal value system in this country. Government cannot do it alone. When we're children, you see just one person taking Indian hemp and you know, he's like an outcast. You know, people look at him, look at this person, he's a drug addict. Now it's all over. It's in the home where some mothers even take drugs. The children take drugs. The father takes drugs. The environment itself is saturated with different drugs on the street. Our value system has dropped to the barest level, down. How do we begin to rejig it? How do we begin to make people aware that drug abuse or the menace of drugs can destroy the society we know as it is? Because it's not the way it used to be before.
Well, yes, I agree with you that to an extent we have very decadent society. And the family unit, of course, has a very key role to play. But what we find ourselves now is that a cursory look at our environment would show that we now have parents. Like Femi said, we don't have parenting again. Poor parenting is a major challenge. It's a major challenge.
And denial from parents if they are told their children take drugs.
Yes. But one thing that I have come to realize that is doing us much harm is the fact that the good ones amongst us are not speaking up. If we go from school to school, from one secondary school to another, giving students voluntary free moral instructions and special lectures on good citizenship. Of course, tell them the dangers in drug abuse and all of that. Students speak up. We hear them. We interact with them. And of course, we understand what the challenges or the basic challenges are like. Now, I can assure you that if you see a class of 40, about 30 of them will be good children. But the 10 that are doing drugs will now be more vocal. They now make drug abuse appear fashionable. That way, you know, they at that age, that their formative stage in life, you find that they are likely to be drawn to things that are fashionable, not necessarily because of economic issues, hardship, and all of that. It's not entirely true. Because you just see this student say, okay, because Tayo is doing it, let me check it out, because Tayo is out there looking more vocal, looking more robust, looking more self-confident, whereas Tayo should be vilified by the society. And again, this now brings me to the entertainment industry. You see, the impact of the content of our music and music videos is on this our young people is enormous. Please, I'm using this opportunity offered by the Nigerian Television Authority to call on Nigeria Censors and Video, Nigeria Video Censors Board, or what I think that is what it's called, Nigerian Film and Video Censors Board. Please, I'm calling on them to wake up, come alive. These things that they dish out on YouTube, on television, TikTok and all of them, especially those of them that are registered, those of them that actually produce CDs or DVDs or CDs. Of course, before you can produce that, you must go through National Film and Video Censors Board before you can be allowed to bring out your album for public consumption. Those things are affecting our children. They have impressional minds at the moment. The society should help them, form them the way we are formed, so that they could clearly see the difference between good and evil and choose the one that they would want to do. Because what we find among these young people now is that, come on, all of them are just following the trend. They don't even have
know what the trend is.
No, they don't have that presence of mind to sit down and say, is this one injurious to me or is this one helpful to me? But because this is where their peers are going, and like I said, a tiny minority of them are the ones dragging them into all of this.
Peer pressure.
So good people in the society should begin to speak out. Let us come out from our cocoons. Let us not say my children are safe. Well, that's what most people think as we speak. But it might not necessarily be a true reflection of what's happening at the moment. So let the good people, if you're in the media, speak out. If you're in sports, speak out. If you're a clergyman, please do speak out. If you're in the academia, speak out. Let there be some form of consensus among the people of Nigeria, a broad spectrum of Nigerians saying, no, this is not part of our culture. Okay. We want to depart from this. It's a contra culture that if we don't check it, that is very, very likely to take over our own culture and have our own culture replaced to the detriment of our collective well-being.
All right. Thank you very much, Chuks Akamadu, for the points that you have raised. And just to remind our viewers about the role of the Film and Video Censors Board. Some years ago, there was a piece that was, like they say, it's released or it dropped, called Science Student, and it was banned from being played on the airwaves. Science Student, I think it was by Olamide or so.
Yes,
so one Olamide, and it was said to be encouraging recourse to drug use. So that was one example, but I've not heard of other examples that may have fallen under the hammer of the Video and Censors Board. So the point you just raised about that is pretty critical. The entertainment industry, first what they produce and what they churn out in terms of encouraging drug demand, and then also the content of their music and seeking to discourage recourse to drug use. So, Dr. Hope Image, I want to come back to you. Earlier, you raised concern about the House of Representatives Summit on drug abuse and the aftermath, that there seemed to have been a mismatch between declarations at the summit and then requisite actions that will follow. And now we're talking again about another summit. And I chipped into my colleague that this isn't a question of summit or summitry. What is it that you would like to see, for instance? Perhaps a committee set up to say, what were the conclusions at that summit? Akamadu has already hinted, and I think that's also a very timely caution. The NDLEA is overwhelmed, and that's why I asked the question. Are people perceiving this now as a federal government problem solely? Federal government, in this case, being represented by the NDLEA. What is needed to be done in terms of the broad spectrum of the issues that appertain to tackling drug abuse in the country?
Yeah, thank you very much. You see, why I say that we do not seem to see actions matching the words that have been churned out over time is because the media need to be well reformed. When I mean the media, I mean media as pertain to drug advocacy, awareness programs, because there's a high level of stigmatization on those who use drug or suffer drug use disorders. Now, many families are even in fear of taking their wards to treatment centers even when they have the capacity to afford treatment because of what this person or that person would say. Now, it's...
Is it, hang on a second, just explain it, because Femi also referenced that earlier. Is the rehabilitation taking place in the market square?
Exactly.
That the whole world will see you?
Now, you see, they forget that the house helps in the house, the drivers, they are aware that Oga's son or Oga's daughter has this problem, and they will not keep quiet. How does our agency...
Even relatives.
Of course, they are aware.
Just helps.
And they will
Relatives.
not keep quiet. They will say it outside, that man, that Oga. Now, we have to now choose between having this in the public places without our knowledge, yet not getting the help needed for this individual who is suffering, and having this in the public place, but yet getting help for this person. However, even the hospitals assures confidentiality. But the challenges is, oh, what if he comes and a fellow patient comes out and they say, oh, this person, I was with this person in the rehab or so. Now, that is on one side. It says that society is still in denial. So, if we are going to have another summit, it should be that we are raising awareness on this issue. I think it's time for action. If indeed, like you said earlier, the ticking bomb has detonated, then we should be taking casualty in for care. One of the ways of taking casualty care is creating the right awareness, which will be targeted at different groups. For example, it's not the same drug message you give to a child that you give to an adult. It's not the same drug message you give to a student or children in school that you give to parents who should be doing right parenting. There are targeted drug messages and awareness programs for different groups, even for pregnant women, for children of 5 years, 7 years, 8 years, and so on, for parents, for even women. You know, so in 2019, my organization partnered with the Center for Women Development, and we trained 250 women on those specific messages for that group. So we must begin to diversify evidence-based messages that are meant for different groups. So, like they said earlier, is multi-sectoral and is multidisciplinary. So the society must first of all wake up from denial, and then we must kill the stigma. And I know it's possible if we're able to kill the stigma that accompanied HIV/AIDS some years ago. If we're able to kill that stigma, then we can also kill the stigma surrounding mental health and drug addiction. So it's not another summit. It's good. Let's have another summit, but there should be objectives for these summits. There should be monitoring and evaluation processes to ensure that what has been said, not just another way to budget money for a show. It's not, because the issue at hand is so much that a show is not enough. We must learn to begin to implement programs that will, tomorrow it may not be your son, but that person's son who you are in government today and you're not able to implement policies that will help that person's son will harm your son, or will even harm you, or will influence your son to do what he's doing tomorrow.
Or could be driving and then
hit you.
Runs into...
So it's important that we, like I said earlier, there is a directorate on drug demand reduction in the NDLA. Not a lot, in my own observation, is being done by that directorate, majorly because of funding. And again, like he said earlier, the media interest may just be on, seizures and the rest. But we also need to shift interest to issues surrounding drug demand reduction.
Yeah, but that's part of what Akamadu was saying. NDLEA can't do this alone. And which harks back to the issue I raised about the role of the subnational entities, and then several other stakeholders, religious organizations, key influencers, and so on and so forth. I remember, hang on a second, on Good Morning Nigeria some years ago, we had an interaction. And that was a success story. A father and a son were here on the program. And the young man told us how, and our viewers, how he got into this and how they tried to get out of it, and what role the father was playing. I do hope that the success story has continued. So those are the kinds of things that, the kind of success stories you want to bring out. But another summit, if you know the idea of a summit or a conference, I don't think this is, I don't know, gentlemen.
Yeah, I was trying to respond to the issue earlier established by Shooks, which you also touched again. That is the NDLA ability to do it all alone. It's not even the entire government. The entire government of Nigeria can do it all alone. And I remember that was what formed that was the motivation for the setting up or the launch of our War Against Drug Abuse WADA Advocacy Initiative on June 26, 2021. The whole essence of WADA is to mobilize the entire society to buy in and take ownership. Take ownership of it. You don't have to wait for NDLA. You don't have, like we saw in the southeast months ago when there was an outbreak of Umpurumiri, that's meth. We saw communities rising up and saying, no, you cannot do this. We work with quite a lot of those communities, and the whole thing subsided. That's the exact thing we're looking out for in our societies, in our communities. Let people take ownership of this fight. You don't, it's not until NDLA comes to arrest, until, even for those peddling in your communities, in your neighborhood. You have landlords association, you have residents association. These people live in your communities. You can come.
And they are known.
Yeah, they are known. They are not ghosts.
They
They
are
are not spirits. You can rise up and say, no, you can't do this in our communities. You have to get out, you have to stop, or you get out of here, or we report you, hand you over to the law enforcement. Those are the kind, and that was exactly what happened to the outbreak of Umpurumiri. If that spirit can continue, if we can all, take that spirit and react with it, to this thing, we would really have no safe place for these people, because there are people that to deal in drugs is not something you can single-handedly do. It's a chain.
Yes.
It's a chain. So people are involved along the line. We have to, because like it's been said, if we think we're immune, we are safe today, tomorrow you can't tell what will happen. Your children, you don't know where they are. You don't know the kind of influence that is working on them. And even you may be indirect victim, because like somebody who is drunk, who is intoxicated, driving on the road, maybe you are standing by the roadside, or you are even, like I used to tell my driver, the fact that you are very conscious, you are very careful, doesn't mean that the person beside you or behind you is equally very careful. So as you are thinking for yourself, also think for that person. Calculate, watch what he's trying to do. So indeed, this whole thing, it's about everybody. It's not what the NDLA has never pretended to be the alpha and omega in this, and that's why we work with quite a lot of people. Like Shooks mentioned, the faith-based organizations, traditional. These are all the people we have gone to mobilize them to take ownership, and we're glad. It may not be as loud as we want yet, but we're glad that quite some religious organizations are actually doing things as just the way we have our NGOs and our CSOs.
Okay, Femi, Baba Femi, we will come to talk about production in Nigeria, not just importing the drugs, when we come back from this break. Don't go away.
I promise that I shall remain committed.
All right, you're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Before we went on that short break, my colleague Jumai was talking about switching the conversation to the production side, of course, which also relates to supply. There have been reports lately and frequently of seizures made by the NDLEA, so seeking to, of course, disrupt the supply of drugs that are abused in the environment. And Femi, I want to come back to you again on this subject matter. It looks like the more you seize, the more these drugs pour out. And as one begins to wonder, Look, if manufacturers are complaining of, I'm not saying that this is with a tremendous respect to those who are in the legal manufacturing and producing ethical products. If manufacturers are complaining of under capacity utilization, it looks like those who are in the drug business are having higher capacity utilization of their facilities. How do you understand this?
Yes, thank you very much for that. I'll tell you that what drives or promotes that market is the money involved. I'll tell you, from a little quantity, for instance, of meth or cocaine or heroin, you may be packaging just that in your pocket and it's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I mean, 1 kg in some parts of the world of these class A drugs, just a kg, is worth $500,000, $600,000.
How big is a kg?
Just something that could be in your hand like this. Just you see it. Just I mean, when we were talking, I mean, when your opening report, you saw the small these things that were, you know. So it's what you can put in your pocket. So the money involved in the global market, that's the driving force and the grip. But I'll tell you that why you see those arrests more frequent is the agency itself is intelligence led at the moment, and that's something that interests me, you know, because these are cartels or networks that have over the years been invisible, but now the agency has put mechanisms and technology in place through which we're able to monitor and track their movements and the things they are doing. So at the right time, for let me give an instance. There was a over 27 kg of meth that we seized in Agor Palace Way, somewhere in Lagos, last week, about 2 weeks ago now. That was, I mean, a consignment that were already packaged for export to Europe and Asia and worth millions of dollars. And when you bring that to Nigeria, that's worth billions. And we have, the chairman has actually empowered and strengthened a special operations unit that's dedicated to this. And because I monitor this development, I'm excited that indeed we have a system in place that can track it. To them is a mystery, because the part of the city where that volume of drug was kept, you will never, I mean the community will never suspect that kind of a thing was there. And we have a team that was able to monitor the movement from a particular place, a particular part of the country to Lagos, how they moved it, tracked everything up to the last point when they were ready to start distributing to other parts of the world. And in a early morning operation, our people were able to. So we have that's one good news there. But then, like I said, the driving force is actually the money involved. You have this thing, and they are ready to. They don't mind the risk, because quite a lot of them believe that you either make it or die. Yeah. It's that the desperation is that, and we've seen quite again beyond that. You also see the global cartel. You see, because they also they network, and that's why you also see some of these things are smuggled from other parts of the world and trying to transit through Nigeria, again redistribute from here to, and that was what happened in the case of the huge cocaine seizure we had in Lagos last year. And beyond that, again, you also have another thing. One of the steps that the agency has also taken to further break their network or their backbone is going beyond the seizure of these drugs and their own arrest, prosecution, and conviction. Because for some of them, they don't even mind if they go to 10, 20 years imprisonment, as long as their funds in the banks, their assets, they come back to me this. And even while they are in prison, they still have control over these things. Another good thing is that we now have a full Directorate of Assets and Financial Investigation that goes after all they have ever acquired. And what we do these days, and that's exactly one of the things we also did recently to one of the heads of a big cartel that actually fled Nigeria to South Africa recently, where we raided his house in Surulere. And we also have to network with our partners across the country to make sure that we tighten the noose on him, and he had to find his way back, because when he saw that everywhere was already getting locked, meaning that we smoked him out. So we're able to get him from another location in Lagos after he sneaked back into the country. So all of these are the things that are happening to respond to this. But the fact that you see these things happening, meaning that these arrests and seizures, meaning that they are not able to get away with all that they used to get away with before. And you can see recently, we have, last week especially, you had all of them coming to the airport ingesting, as in people,
yes.
Some even a whole, almost a 70-year-old man. I mean, it's that pathetic.
One said he wanted to marry a second wife.
Yes, he actually said he has spent 30 years in Brazil, Thailand, and Addis Ababa before. And so, having wasted those 30 years with his wife dead and no child, so he decided to say, okay, let him start life afresh, and decided to take ingest cocaine.
Gentlemen, let me quickly raise this. While you were talking about production and seizures, it would appear from one of the stories that your agency released some time ago, that some persons who are involved in pharmaceutical production are also using that as an avenue for applying drugs. Pharmaceutical production.
Yes.
Is this a matter that is one that the NDLA is on top of? That through the Pharmacists Council, Pharmacist Association, there was a big raid that the NDLA reported. Yes. And some gentleman who was said to be a big pharmaceutical producer, you know, with all kinds of armed guards around him, was busted.
Yes. Yes, there are even two layers to that. There are those who are actually licensed to bring these chemicals. We call them precursor chemicals. They are actually used to produce these pharmaceutical drugs. And at one level, rather than using this for what they are actually licensed to bring
legally,
legally, they divert these things to the black market or to produce some other things. And there are also the other layer is also these people that are also licensed to bring in pharmaceutical products, and rather than bringing in the accurate thing they got approval to bring in, they bring in things that were not allowed, or they are prohibited in Nigeria. And that's the case you are referring to. It's a matter in court, that's why I'm not able to mention names now. And there you have people who bring in millions of pills of opioids, and you wonder, who are you going to feed these with? You know that your own kids, you have put them, secure them out there in the West, and you are bringing in millions of pills of these opioids to feed who? Other people's children. Because these pills, I mean, you're talking about especially tramadol. We know that what is legally allowed in Nigeria is those within 50 and 100 mg. But you are bringing in 150, 200, 250, 225. Who are you bringing them in to Nigeria to feed? We have also seen, like the ones we seized one this week, a consignment this week. In fact, because these people keep reinventing,
yes,
because they know that we are all out. Now, the new development we saw this week was trying to make it look as if these drugs are not coming to Nigeria, going elsewhere, but they will eventually divert it to Nigeria. But men at the borders, they were very smart enough to understand that this volume, and that is another thing with partnership with our counterparts in other parts, right real time, they were able to contact counterparts in the other country to find out this volume of these particular drugs. We just saw it here, and it's been cleared to come to your side. Do you have records of this coming to your side? And real time, they were able to check and confirm to us that indeed there was no something, and that was how we were able to, because eventually that thing would have to come back. You know, they will prepare it as if it's going, but they will take the, and these are millions of pills of this, and we know, you know that when our young people take these things, their organs are damaged, and we lose, I mean, people that are supposed to be contributing to our GDP.
No, and that it's a very sad, situation we find ourselves in this country. Let me bring in Dr. Hope Emezia. You're a specialist rehabilitation. You have a center for rehabilitation.
Centers.
You're centers. And Femi has said that it's quite expensive to go for rehabilitation, and we've seen traditional treatment, mostly dehumanizing drug addicts or victims of drug addiction, and then because they can't afford a place like yours, and in most cases there's they call it in rehabilitation, you go out, you come out, and then you have to go back again. Relapse. Yes. Why do they relapse? Why? After going through a series of treatment like that, why do they relapse? Is it the society itself that brings them back into the fold again?
You see, first of all, we must understand what drug addiction is. Drug addiction is defined as a chronic, underlying chronic first, relapsing, another underlying, brain disease. It's a chronic relapsing brain disease characterized by compulsive use of the drug in the face of negative consequences. Uncontrollable. The person knows that there are negative consequences for the use of this drug, but he has lost the brain capacity to be in control of that behavior. And so I tell people every time that the first time an individual takes a drug, it is voluntary. He was in his right senses, either for peer pressure reasons or for he wants to feel confident about something. He was stressed, he had pains. Some of these abuse drugs too are prescription drugs.
Yes.
Now, so for whatever reason this person indulged the first time, he was in his right senses. He was in charge.
It was a choice.
Yes. Now, subsequently, this drug affects particular areas of the brain, which is why these drugs are also called psychotropic drugs. They have their major target areas in the brain. And so it overturns and injures the brain to a level where the person is now under the control of that substance. If the urge to use comes by 2 a.m., he will want to find it no matter what happens. Mr. Babafemi has mentioned, uncountable times now that, you see, the drive for this business, the drug supply business, is because of the money involved, which underscores that it is because of the demand. It is people that pays this money that these people get. And people don't pay money for nothing. They pay money for value. It is what they feel they are getting from that substance that makes them pay that amount of money to get that substance. And this is predicated by the addiction they are in that tells them that you need this drug to survive. So we must begin to look at addiction as a public health concern. Like we have already said, everybody must come on it. We can't start mentioning, the federal government, the state government, local government, SARS, MAS. If we do not have corporate organizations, private individuals who are taking interest in treatment for those suffering drug abuse, in creating needed awareness, reduction of stigmatization, and even to support the ongoing, war against those who are drug peddlers, then this war or this campaign may go nowhere. So we must begin to look at possibility of even, you see, regarding the matter of setting aside fund for this. We know it's not, I don't think it's also about setting new agencies, new fund scheme and the rest. It is saying that we all have to rally around NDLA in achieving their mandate. I always say that NDLA is the landlord of those of us who are in the NGO system because they are our landlord. We are complementing what they are doing. So all individuals who are interested in this must begin to rally around. I have free access to NDLA and even make recommendation, pay visits and say, okay, this is what I think NDLA should be doing. They are open to all of this. They are open to say, okay, this company is interested in treating people. NDLA, can you get centers you have partnered with and sponsor treatment? NDLA in the last one, I think last year, sir, NDLA collaborated with us and picked somebody from the street, a young man who had begged for treatment, and NDLA went with my facility to pick the person into treatment at no cost on this person.
But usually, why is rehab costs?
Now, you see, except it's very expensive.
Why?
Now, in the Western countries, rehab care fee is over ₦1 million per month, 2 million naira per month. Now, why is it expensive? It's not an easy job. First of all, in our facility, we have a consultant psychiatrist. It's not a social center where you just come and sleep and wake up, get up and go. No. And then we have clinical psychologists. We have psychologists, medical doctors, mental health nurses, counselors. Sometimes, most of the times even, patients will have to be on medications. And these drugs are not cheap. Now, because we keep undermining the burden of drug addiction. And that's why I said earlier that it's a mental illness. Most times, families will call me and tell me, if my son is not mad or he's not serious, he's a very good, if you see him, you would like it. He's just taking drugs. Why is he just taking drugs? Something is wrong.
Yes.
Something is wrong. Yes. And then this boy in question will waste 20 million naira in a weekend. And it's just.
Yes.
This boy in question will crash 3 cars in 2 months. And it's just. So we keep undermining. We are not waking up here to the reality of the issue on ground. All right, so that is why it's expensive to. We are talking about they are feeding 3 times daily, and I keep saying, a father came and saw this one. I said,
and the environment has to be conducive.
A father came and said, why are you feeding him so much? He need to suffer. I cannot be struggling to pay, and he's here enjoying. And I quite try to correct that impression. People also think that why people don't come in for treatment is this. People also feel that rehab care program is a punishment program for wrongdoing. No. You don't come into the rehab because you are meant to be punished for doing wrong. Addiction is not a moral failure. We need to separate these things. That the person took drug the first time, yes, he was wrong, we should blame him for all of that. But the fact that he cannot stop is now a disease. The person should achieve sick role. He should be taken care of.
Yeah,
he should be supported to heal.
The more we drill into this, the more I'm reminded, and I'm sure we all remember what happened to Whitney Houston.
Yes.
And her daughter.
Yes.
As well. Very sad.
Yes, sad.
I mean, one of the last images of Whitney Houston, she looked like a ghost.
Yes.
She was a pretty talented human being. Yeah, so rest in peace. Well, very quickly, because we're getting out of time now. Again, some years ago, getting back now to the pharmaceutical side of things, we had the Honorable Minister of Health, Dr. Osage Anire. I think he was then Minister of State or Minister of Health, I'm not quite sure now. There was a report that at least 1 million bottles of codeine cough syrup was being abused in Kano.
Yes.
Every day. 1 million bottles. And the government moved in, and I think they tried to stop that. I'm not sure what the numbers are now, or whether we're back again, but we keep hearing about tramadol and so on and so forth. Have we conquered that territory of abuse of cough syrups in our pharmacies?
Well, the opioids, we categorize and as part of the opioids, what we have simply seen is because we've made it difficult for the free movement and circulation or distribution of these drugs, we have also seen the introduction of what we call new psychoactive substances. You see, because these people, like he said, when they are already hooked, they are desperate for this, like their life depends on it.
Their life
And
depends
the
on it.
moment they can't get what they need, then they'll have to devise other means. And that's what has led us to the new psychoactive substances. And you will see recently that the NDLA also had to come out with a statement to clamp down on Akuskura. And we have quite, that's just a name, we have quite a lot of names in parts of the country for this, because we discovered Akuskura naturally is supposed to be a herbal drink, but in our investigation we discovered that some of the people involved have started mixing other things, like even one of the suspects that was arrested, we found cocaine and tramadol on him, on the person, but majorly cannabis. They mixed cannabis with this, and that's why you see some of these people, when they say they are taking Akuskura, and some of them will just fall down because the people, a lot, especially those that are already having underlying health issues, they just take this thing believing that they are taking herbal products. And
okay, Femi, Baba Femi, Director Media and Advocacy, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA. Thank you so much. We seem not to have enough time when we're discussing issues like this.
It's never enough. Thank you very much.
Vice Chuks Akamadu, President, Center for Ethical Rebirth among Nigerian Youth. Thank you so much for coming.
It was an
sharing
honor.
your thoughts with us.
Thank
Dr.
you
Hope
much.
Omeza, Managing Director, VGA, their Specialist Rehabilitation Center.
Thank you very much.
A pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Juma, you see why some countries
Yes.
take the extreme measure in terms of punishment
Yes.
for drug peddling. Saudi Arabia is death penalty.
Thailand, Malaysia.
Malaysia will issue you a visa, and then on the visa it will be stated that the penalty for drug trafficking is death. That's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Thank you for being with us. Tomorrow is another day. Join us same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Jumwe Yusuf. Contribute your quota to reducing the menace of drug abuse in Nigeria.
NTA News 24 has the sole mandate bringing news to you anywhere and everywhere.
We set standards based on current broadcast realities while consolidating on a wider reach to variety of audiences.
We go beyond the screaming headlines to verify, interrogate, and accommodate all shades of opinion without prejudice to national interest.
Our well-researched, packaged, and live programs keep you abreast of events, personalities, and current affairs.
Advertising your goods and services on the right channel gives you an edge over your competitors. NTA News 24 has all the platforms for your target audience